I spent the last 14 days making 3 different games in Unity, and in this video I'm going to show you what I made. Now, I've dabbled in game dev in the past, but this time I want to take a real shot at it and properly learn how to make games. So for my first game, I decided to make a 2D platformer because why not? I fired up Unity Hub, created a new project, and when everything was opened, the first thing I did was remove the ugly blue background. Then I set up the basic scene and started to steal code from people on the internet. I came across this video by Dinosaur, and I really liked his explanation, so I tried to copy his code that he shared, but it didn't go as smoothly as I was anticipating. I spent a long time trying to implement his code, but I couldn't get it to work properly, and I was starting to get a little frustrated. So I did the next best thing and deleted the entire code and decided that I'll try a simpler approach. There's this video by Mixin Jam about recreating Celeste's movement, and I think his results were really great, so I tried copying his code. And this time I was quite happy with the results. I spent a while trying to get the game to feel just right. I also added the dash mechanic from Celeste to my little game. However, I couldn't get the wall jump to work properly. It just didn't work the same way each time. I couldn't figure out why the wall jump wasn't working the way it should, and I thought to myself that making 10 crappy games is probably a better learning experience than making one super polished game. So I gave up on fixing the wall jump, and instead I added some juicy particles, screen shakes, and post-processing effects, just to make it a little pretty for YouTube. And this is what we have for our first game. This might not be a AAA quality game, but I think the little juiciness actually brings it closer to AAA quality. Let me know what you think. I don't plan to make these buggy little prototypes available for you guys to play, but if there's enough interest, I might make them available. For my next game, I looked to the Google Chrome No Internet Dino Endless Runner game for inspiration. This time I was a little bit more comfortable in my approach. So just like last time, I fired up Unity Hub, created a new project, and deleted the blue background. Then I set up the scene and added a basic jump to our player. I followed this tutorial by Board2Bits Games to add variable jump height to my player. And then I followed this tutorial series by Muddy Wolf to create the rest of the game. Compared to the last game, things were going really smoothly this time, and I could feel my dream of becoming a game dev come into fruition. I ended up removing the variable jump height and copied the jump system from my previous game because I wasn't liking how the variable jump felt. I also added a simple score system, a simple difficulty system, a simple game loop, and some juice, which is basically some post-processing effects and some particles. And with that, I think I'm pretty happy with this prototype as well. The development process was much smoother than last time, and I'm quite happy with the results really. Moving on to my third and final game for this video, I wanted to make a simple 2D top-down shooter. So, as usual, I created a new project and deleted the blue background because I hate it so much. And I set up the scene as usual and started typing away. I created my basic player movement functionality. This time I was able to create this by myself without looking up any tutorial. Then I looked up a tutorial on how to rotate my player towards the mouse cursor. And already, my game was looking fantastic. The next thing I had to do was create the shooting part of the top-down shooter, so that's what I tried. And by the end, this is what I had. So far, so good. I then needed something to shoot, so I set out to make an enemy. That didn't sound right. Anyway, I added a capsule and a box, and look at him. Isn't he cute? Great. Next, I made him chase the player. Perfect. Now all I needed was a way to kill him, and also figure out a way to spawn enemies randomly around the player. I worked on the killing part first, and this is where my expert programming skills were starting to fail me. I was struggling to keep my code clean while also making sure everything works perfectly. So I did the next best thing and wrote some beautiful spaghetti code and hoped and prayed to God that it works. And oh look, it doesn't work. So I made use of modern technology and asked ChatGPT to help me with it. Surprisingly, it generated some clean code and it provided a decent explanation as well. I used the code it spat out, and it did exactly what I wanted. And then I wanted my enemies to orbit the player when it reached a certain distance from the player. And when I wrote the code, it wasn't working the way I wanted it to. The enemies just kept getting closer while orbiting the player, and I was starting to feel like a female Twitch streamer at one point. In the middle of working on it, my power went out and the recording file got corrupted. I did manage to save most of my changes in the project, however, so not much was lost. So here's what the final version of the game looks like. I added a shooting logic to my enemies, and it's the same logic I used for my player, so now the enemies can kill each other. I thought it was really cool, so I left it in there. I also did not fix the orbiting problem because of my laziness and lack of understanding. There are no sounds in any of these games, but I think the slight screen shakes and particles sort of make up for it. So those were the games I made in the last 2 weeks. I felt like I learned something by creating these prototypes, so that's a win in my book. I want to make a few more small games like these in the future, but in 3D, and maybe make them a little bit more finished. I also gotta mention that I was following a free Unity course on YouTube by CodeMonkey alongside these projects, and I'm learning a ton from it. If you want to get into game development but not sure where to start, I can highly recommend this course. This is not sponsored or anything, I genuinely think it's an awesome course with a lot of value in it. But anyway, I want to know what you thought of today's video, and I also encourage you guys to try and make some small games yourselves, and let me know your experiences in the comments below. That's all for today, and I'll see you later.